guys, welcome to our math lesson. Let's go ahead and let's get started by reading our learning target. I can measure the length of an object by choosing and using appropriate tools. In order to meet this learning target, there's a couple things that we need to be able to do. We need to be able to use measuring tools correctly. We need to be able to understand the difference between the measuring tools and the units. And we need to be able to choose the best tool to measure an object. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be in our Ready Math Journal on page 535. 535. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at number 1. The way we're going to do this is you're going to answer the question and then we'll come back together and check to see if you got it correct. Or if you didn't get it correct, see where your mistake was made so that we can fix that mistake, okay? All right, so number 1 says, Leah wants to measure the length of her bike in feet. Which tools could she use? All right, go ahead and answer that question. When you're done, pause the video to check. All right, so she wants to measure her bike in feet. So when I'm thinking about feet, I'm thinking about 1 foot being 12 inches. So if I have multiple feet, or multiple 12 inches, then that is where I get that feet, right? So 12 inches equals 1 foot, and then 3 feet equals 1 yard, okay? So I know that feet is measured in inches. So I could use a 12-inch ruler. I could use a yardstick. Could I use a meter stick? No, meter sticks measure in centimeters and not inches, so I couldn't use the meter stick. Could I use measuring tape? I could use a measuring tape because remember, measuring tape has inches and centimeters on it. And could I use a centimeter ruler? No, I can't use centimeters to measure, so I could use a 12-inch ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape to measure the length of her bike in feet. Okay? All right, let's go to number 2. What is the length of the worm to the nearest inch? So remember that word length means to measure to see how long something is. We want to know what is the distance from one point to the other. Okay? All right, go ahead and answer number 2. When you're done, you may unpause the video. All right, so we need to know how to use a ruler correctly. Remember, a ruler is a measurement tool. So where do we start all measuring tools at on an object? We started at the end of the object, right on the left side of that object. We started on the 0 of our ruler. If our ruler doesn't have a 0, remember it's assumed that the 0 is at the end, okay? All right, then we go all the way across to where the item ends at the right to see how long that item is. We're looking for that number underneath. Okay, and remember it says nearest, so we want to know the closest inch. Okay, all right, go ahead and answer that. When you're done, you may unpause the video to check. All right, did you say that this worm was about 3 inches? So the length of the worm is about 3 inches. All right, number 3. Ruby measures each line to the nearest centimeter. She writes the length at the end. She writes the length of each line after it. Did she measure correctly? Choose yes or no. So you need to measure the line to decide if she measured correctly. If she did, you'll circle yes. If she did not measure correctly, then you will circle no. Go ahead and pause the video and answer. When you're done, you may unpause. All right, did she measure this first line correctly, where she said it was 5 centimeters? She did not, no. Did she measure the line that was 3 centimeters correctly? Yes. Did she measure the line that was 2 centimeters correctly? Yes. Did she measure the line that was 4 centimeters correctly? Yes. Great job. Now let's go ahead and let's go on to number 4. Number 4. All right, it says, Marcus says that the length of the stick is 3 feet. What did Marcus do wrong? Go ahead and pause the video and you may answer. All right, so he measured it in 3 feet. So did he measure in inches? Is that what he did wrong? Now, you could measure in inches, but they told us 3 feet. So that wasn't what he did wrong, was that he measured in inches. He used the wrong side of the ruler. Okay, now did he start in the right place? He didn't start in the right place, but I wouldn't necessarily say that this was the wrong side of the ruler because we don't exactly know what measuring tool they use. We know it is something that is longer than 3 feet. So we're not saying that he used the wrong side of the ruler. He didn't line up one end of the stick at 0. Is that true? Is that a mistake? Yeah, we always have to start our items at that 0 or at the end where the 0 is assumed to be, right? All right, let's put a star beside that. D, he should have used an inch ruler. Is it the tool that he used the problem? No, the way that he measured was the problem. He should have put the stick at the end on the 0. So, what is the actual length of this stick in feet? Now, you're not going to be able to use your ruler. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to look at where it started. So, it started here. So, we have to say that that is 0 feet. This is 1 foot. And this is 2 feet. So, the length of this stick is actually how long? Yeah, it's actually 2 feet. So, if we were to basically pick the ruler up and move it over or move the stick over, it would end at 2 feet there, okay? All right, 6. Brian wants to measure the length of his bed in meters. He says the best tool to use is a ruler. Do you agree? Why or why not? Pause the video and answer that question. When you're done, you may unpause the video. All right, so do you think that a ruler is the best tool to use to measure the length of your bed? No, I don't agree with Brian. All right, so we've answered the question, do you agree? I do not agree. But why don't I agree? Why don't you agree that a ruler is the best tool to measure a bed? Are there better tools to use to measure the length of something long? What might be a better tool? Well, better than a ruler might be a yardstick, right? But what's that tool that can measure really, really long things? Remember we talked about it yesterday when we were measuring a car? Yeah, measuring tape would be the best. So a measuring tape would be a better tool to measure larger items. All right, that goes back to our success criteria of being able to know the difference in the different measuring tools and the units, and then being able to choose the best tool to measure those, okay? So a ruler would not be the best tool because it is too small, and there's a better tool that measures larger objects. All right, number 7, name 2 objects that have very different lengths. Describe what tool you would use to measure each object and explain why you chose that tool. So you're going to choose 2 objects that have very different lengths. If you need help thinking about this, go back to page 532 and think about the watch and the car. Those are 2 different objects, right? 2 different objects of length. Then you need to describe why you chose the tool that you used, okay? All right, guys, so this last problem here, number 7, is really going to show if you can do our learning target. I can measure the length of an object by choosing and using appropriate tools, okay? This last question is really going to help us know if you understand the difference in the different measuring tools and units, and if you are able to choose the best tool for the job, okay? Can't wait to see how awesome you have done with our learning target this week. Bye, guys.